And so let's consider here complex numbers in the form a plus bi, where I is a square root of -1. There's no real root for the square root of -1, so we can write it as I, and a and b are real numbers. Take note that b cannot be 0, because if b is 0, then it's not a complex number anymore, but it's a real number. So let's try to simplify this number square root of -16 using a plus bi. All right, and we have the square root of -16. Let's write this square root of -16 into a plus bi. We can write -16 as a factor of 16 and -1, right? It's -1. Now we can write this as a square root of 16 times square root of -1. So what's the square root of 16? 4. And square root of -1, we can write that as I. We know that square root of -1 is equal to I, so we have 4i. Therefore, square root of -16 is equal to 4i. Let's simplify also square root of -29. We can rewrite this as a factor, -29 as a factor of what? Or as a product of 29 and, all right, that's 29 and -1. So we can rewrite this as a square root of 29 using the property of radicals. Square root of 29 times square root of -1. Do we have a square root of 29? Nope, it's prime number, right? So the square root of 29, and then your square root of -1 is I. Okay. But do not put the I in the square root. Okay, so it's square root of 29. Let's have 34 square root of -24. Same thing. We can write -24 as a product of 24 and -1. Expanding this using the properties of radicals, we have a square root of 24 times square root of -1. We know that the square root of -24 is, square root of 24 is not a perfect square. Square root of -1 is I, but note that square root of 24 can still be simplified. What are the factors of 24? Wherein one of the factors is a perfect square. Can we write all factors of 24? So when we write the factors of 24, you have 1 in 24. Of course, we don't use 1 in 24. We have 2 and 12. None of them is a perfect square. 3 and 8. None of them is a perfect square. 4, 6. 1 is perfect square, 4. But is that a biggest perfect square factor? Let's try all others. We have other factors of 24. I think we already have written all the factors, right? If we put 6 here, we go back to 4. If we put 8 here, we go back to 3, 8. All right, so I think that these are the only factors. It's 4, 6, or 6, 4. And the biggest perfect square factor is 4. So that means we have 4 and 6. I. Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 6. I. All right.